Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night, whatever it is for all of you out there. Thank you so much for joining. So to be here with you. And I'm going to attempt to advance the slide. There we go. All right, we're off and rolling. My name is Peter Curran. As Tom said, I'm the general manager for the commerce business at Lucidworks. I've been doing this kind of work for a long time, and I've got a lot of content for you. This is a picture of me in Tucson, Arizona, eating a Synonym hot dog. If you've never had one, I highly recommend it. So the thing I'm going to talk to you about today are trends for 2022. And I kind of think of trends as falling into sort of two categories, and it's illustrated by the two sneakers that you see here. On the right is the Nike Daybreak, which is a classic sneaker that Nike's been manufacturing for, I think, 50 years, something like that, pretty close to that, maybe fewer than that. They've got a Golden Gals colorway here, I think probably because of Betty White's passing recently as kind of an homage to her. And then they have this other product, the Ocean Cube Nike Offline, which is kind of a pandemic, work from home, very, very comfortable, squishy shoe that you might or might not want to be seen wearing in public. That's kind of a to the extent a sneaker can be revolutionary, I would say that's a more revolutionary thing than just changing the colors. But both are relevant to the moment. One is about the pandemic, the other is about kind of a celebrity. And so, you know, as I give you these trends for 2022, some of them are pretty wacky, and I think they're kind of in that revolutionary category. Some of them are just a shade different from how we used to do things before. So do keep that in mind. And also, as it relates to this, is this concept of how we do product discovery in Lucidworks. And this is the end of the Lucidworks commercial for the balance of the webinar. But I think a thing that's really cool about our platform is almost everybody in the market uses a traditional search approach. And unless it's a legacy offering, an old offering, almost everybody takes that legacy, sometimes called inverted index approach, and livens it up with artificial intelligence and machine learning. And I think there are a lot of great offerings in the market. I think we have a great offering on the market that way, and that enhancement is what I would call refreshing, just kind of like the gold sneaker. But a thing that we do that I think is quite revolutionary is that we're able to retrieve products, so e-commerce products, out of a multi-dimensional graph. Now this graph shows 3 dimensions and shows vectors showing the relationship between king and queen and man and woman. But we are able to create graphs that have 50 or 100 or 200 dimensions and do really, really interesting information retrieval that way. So I'm going to refer to vector retrieval and vector databases, and I just want you to know what I'm talking about. It's this cool revolutionary thing that I think is going to change the way that people look for stuff on the internet, and already is changing the way people look for stuff on the internet, and I want you to know about it as I go along here. So talking about type ahead, this quote is an article from 2013, which is 50 internet years ago and 8 real years ago. And you can see that this author for Fast Company has written a piece about a kind of haiku poetry that's created by the original type ahead functionality that Google introduced back then. And I thought that this one from 2013 was particularly appropriate to the world that we live in now. Today I learned, today I caught the plague, today I found out, today I hate everyone. It kind of sums up how I think a lot of people feel today back in 2013. And this type ahead that Google created blew up all over retail e-commerce and B2B e-commerce, and now is omnipresent. And you have certain websites like the Zara website, for example, and we're not advancing, there it is. The Zara website, which works effectively only as a type ahead. They don't sort of separate the type ahead from the search results page. The type ahead experience, that window is your search experience on the Zara site. So some companies have gone really far one direction, but the first trend that I want to communicate to you, if you haven't noticed, most of the really large and leading e-commerce websites have removed visual type ahead. So they've taken those product images out. And so just to show you, here's an example from Home Depot. Home Depot was one of the very first companies to add this kind of capability to their site. It is today gone. I think probably in the last 6 or 8 months has vanished off of the Home Depot website. Here's Walmart, of course, another massive e-commerce player. They have removed visual product flyouts, and Target has removed it. So over on the left-hand side, there are a few kind of metadata for this particular trend. You know, things that whether I think it's appropriate to B2C or B2B, or what the metrics are that you should pay attention to if you're thinking about making this kind of a change. But just to say, number one, I think visual flyouts are going to continue to evaporate. And I'm kind of curious, maybe people in the chat want to talk about if they are a company that used to have it and removed it, why did you do it? I think that the reason has to do with performance. Showing pictures makes the experience slower. There are other reasons, maybe having to do with managing mobile versus desktop. These are all desktop screenshots. But I'm curious, please engage in the chat if you want to talk about that. The second trend related to type ahead is kind of a next generation, more dynamic type ahead experience that doesn't follow that normal flyout type experience that became, you know, predominant, and the poll showed us was predominant for those of you who do it today. And here I'm showing the Amazon website. This is a place where you can see this kind of functionality front and center. So I've started in the Amazon search box with just the letter T. My intent here is to search for twin-sized sheets, something my wife asked me to buy the other day. So I type a T, and you can see they have all kinds of stuff that they suggest. So that's another trend, which is that they're engaging the type ahead functionality not on the third keystroke, but on the first keystroke. So I'd say that's a second trend. The next thing that happens, though, that's interesting is if I keep typing and I get to twin S, you can see that up here at the top, they give me the ability to go to a search results page with a pre-filtered selection of microfiber, polyester, cotton, or flannel. We used to do this in sort of previous type ahead generations in the URL that sits behind these suggestions. But it's interesting that Amazon sort of brings that out and puts that button front and center for the user to select. If I keep typing and don't start, we lost it. Looks like an animation is messed up. If I keep typing, it shows actual images in the type ahead that allows me to select mattress depth and some other things along those lines and go straight to the search results page. So I think that next gen type ahead is a thing you'll start to see more in 2022. Next trend, I love this quote from Amy Odell. She says, BS sustainability claims will continue in earnest, though they should soon face harsher regulation in the United States. This is a fantastic newsletter. If you don't get this newsletter on fashion, I highly recommend it. Super, super edgy and interesting. And what this is about how everybody wants to sort of be on the sustainability train. And some companies have kind of been there from the beginning, like ThreadUp, for example, is a very well-known, publicly traded, used, garment company focused on a specific niche where used garments are, always very popular, which is kids who are constantly growing. And, for example, women who, for a short period of their life, need, maternity clothes. So they don't want to drop. Maybe they want a few things that they buy new, but in general, they want to buy things secondhand. So these sites like ThreadUp kind of cater to that niche for used. But there are more entrants. So for example, the RealReal, and we could go through, you probably know many of these. The RealReal is kind of focused on the luxury segment. So where I might not otherwise be able to afford an Hermes item, but I want to kind of show up with a little bit of bling on an outfit, I can go and get it, a legitimate item from the RealReal. and show up wearing that thing that I want to wear. But the company that I love the most in this trend is Patagonia. I don't know if you saw their Black Friday homepage, but this is what it said. It says, give a damn. And it does something that I haven't seen a lot of companies do before, which is they try to persuade you, don't buy something new from our website on Black Friday. Right? It's almost like what REI did, another highly ethical company that I respect and love a lot. Said, you know what, like, don't go shopping on Black Friday. Go out into the woods and enjoy yourself. Clear your mind. Let's get out of this, thing where we go shopping now on Thanksgiving and Black Friday, and let's do something different. So their active message, the idea of buying used products, and then they have this site, Warnware. And the reason that I bring this up in the context of this webinar is, first of all, I think that brand, like Patagonia, brand-oriented pre-loved sites is a new trend that you'll see more in 2022. And I think it poses particular problems for product discovery. So here you can see I've searched the Warnware site for men's rain jacket. There are 123 men's rain jacket products. But if I search this site for just a slightly different term, I say I want men's rain coats, I get the we're running on empty, zero results page. So here's an example of a synonym bridge between jackets and coats that they're probably a little bit hesitant to make. Either they didn't have time to make it and didn't make it, or can't make that synonym entry, or they're hesitant to make it. And I think this is more likely the case because the stock is constantly changing on this used stuff, and it includes all the Patagonia things ever made, so the beginning of Patagonia. So that's a whole lot of stuff, and that's a lot of synonyms to manage. So they're probably wanting to kind of slow their roll on that. There's another trend coming up later that I'm gonna elaborate on, a thing that Patagonia could do about that problem. So the next thing is this is super interesting. There's a search website called Kayak. And a month or so ago, they came out with a report about the sort of superlatives tied to all of the states in the United States. And the URL you can see is there. And they said the state in the country that looked the most for travel in the morning was Montana. They looked for things before they went to work in Montana. In Oregon, they mostly looked after they got home from work. But of course, in our nation's capital in Washington, D.C., people were mostly looking for travel while they were at work. That doesn't surprise me one iota. I don't know about you guys. So what does this mean? People looking for things while they're at work or before work or after work. It kind of means that people are constantly hunting for certain kinds of opportunities to buy things. In this case, travel. And as I wait for the animation to come in, and we've gone one too far. One place where you see a unique solution to this, which is this concept of following searches, is on this website that I absolutely love, very dangerous website called Invaluable. And I love octopuses. I think they're really cool looking, and there's neat design associated with octopuses. And you can see here I've searched for octopus, but they give me, do you see this button, follow this keyword? They give me the ability to subscribe to my interest in octopuses. And if you think about it, this is an auction website where you can join like live auctions and bid on, not like eBay type auctions, but actual live auctions with a dude with a gavel and that kind of thing. And you bid on products. So I search for like artists that I like. I search for thematic things like octopuses that I like. I search for certain kinds of furniture that I'm interested in buying. So I'm able to kind of stay in touch with all of the auctions happening around the world for this esoteric stuff that I'm interested in buying without coming and searching again on this website over and over and over again. And so what I would submit to you is that this is potentially a solution for some of the frustration that consumers feel with supply chain problems. This kind of, we don't have it today, I don't know when we're gonna have it, but come back tomorrow. Well, look at, I don't have time to be coming back every single day and searching your website for toilet paper. Like, just let me know when you get it, please. And so I love this idea for a supply chain mitigation technique. You can see another example of this functionality if you are thinking about it and you want to see what kind of UI UX check out Kayak, the company we were talking about a second ago. Here I'm searching for a flight to Paris this August, and you can see here on the screen that they've got this track prices button. As soon as I click that switch over to on, it asks me for my email address. So if you are looking for a way to sort of force the login activity and get people to engage or to give you their email address, this might be another way that you can kind of separate your anonymous traffic from your authenticated and logged in traffic by saying, hey, you know, we can track this search for you going forward. So I like that technique. So following searches is what I'm calling it. So this is not a real quote or a real piece of information, but I ran this company called Cirrus 10 for a long time. And we once had a client that had 12,500 search synonyms that they were actively managing, really unable, I think with one person. They were really unable to look at most of those synonyms, so it was effectively not managed, but they had 12,500 of them running at once. I think I remember somebody who had more than that, but that's one I can remember, which is absolutely absurd thing. And so you remember we were talking about the Patagonia Wornwear site and that synonym between coat and jacket. So you understand this is why people enter synonyms, and it can grow into a problem that is very, very costly and difficult to manage. I want you to consider a company like Netflix and what it would mean for Netflix to maintain an intimacy with a consumer where the consumer feels like we know what, or Netflix knows what I am talking about when I search for a movie like Full Metal Jacket. So here I've searched for a war movie, Full Metal Jacket, very horrifying movie. And you can see that Netflix does not have Full Metal Jacket, just the same way that Patagonia doesn't describe something as a men's raincoat, but they obviously understand what it means. And there is no way on God's green earth that Netflix is managing synonyms across every movie and every actor and every kind of movie genre ever made. So what they are doing is they are automatically understanding that Full Metal Jacket is a movie. And as you can see by the results, the alternatives that they give me, they clearly understand that it is an action-oriented, kind of violent war movie like 300 is, as well as a bunch of other, kind of war movies from different eras in history. So how do they do this? The way that they do this is the technique that I was talking about earlier, which is vector retrieval. So the idea is that rather than doing haphazard query loosening, in other words, where I just drop the word full and look for metal and jacket, or I drop the word jacket and look for only metal or full, right? And come back with bizarre results for the search for full or just the search for jacket. What I do is I take that query Full Metal Jacket into vector space, and I say, hey, what are some movies that are in that part of the graph where Full Metal Jacket is? And when I do that, I can bring back these alternative movies. Looking at that in an e-commerce context, you can see this kind of functionality also on the Costco website. Here I've searched for a kind of rice called Sona Masuri. Sona Masuri is a very popular rice in southern India, and people from that part of the world who live in the United States can buy gigantic sacks of that kind of rice in a warehouse, but they can't buy it online on Costco.com. So they search for Sona Masuri. Costco's not maintaining a synonym for Sona Masuri equals rice, but you can see here that the search technology has returned basmati rice, 2 different kinds of it, as well as quinoa and a variety of other things that are more relevant to that search than just showing, sorry, we're running on empty, we don't have that kind of a product. So I think that companies implementing this Netflix and Costco style automated synonym technique will make the expense of managing thousands of synonyms too costly for other companies to continue to compete. So it will become important to move this labor into the vector retrieval technique and focus that labor on other kinds of search merchandising and curation activities, of which there are an endless number. So that's number 5. Moving along to number 6. This is a little bit hard to see, but this is a McKinsey report, with McKinsey & Company, the big consulting and management consulting firm. They have a 2022 retail insights on sporting goods, on the sporting goods category. I'm sure there are a bunch of sporting goods people on the call today. If you haven't read this report, it's super, super interesting. And it includes this graphic that I've included from the report, where they show the relationship between EBITDA, or EBIT, they take the amortization off the end, and yearly sales growth over a period, and they chart the market penetration, or the size of the company, in these 2 dimensions. And you can see that there is this kind of gulf that they're calling in no man's land, where companies that see high growth tend not to be as profitable. A notable exception here is Lululemon, which is able to sell products at a high margin and continue to grow, as well as some companies that are probably, in my opinion, a little bit overrepresented. Nike feels like multiple different businesses to me, as opposed to one gigantic business. And I think some people at Nike might kind of agree with that. So I would think that certain categories of Nike are in one area and not in that lower left. I just think it's kind of interesting a graphic, and I hope you guys are able to read the report. This is related to a concept that is completely unseen anywhere else before. As far as I know, nobody does what I'm about to show you. And so this is more of a kind of a thought leadership kind of idea, or a art of the possible kind of idea that I want to persuade you to think about. And so consider a sporting goods use case. We have a build problem here. Let me, there we go. Consider a sporting goods use case where I'm looking for a sleeping bag for a kid. I'm going to take my kid camping. And you can see here that I go into the kind of sleeping bags or camping, I go into the camping category, and they list out a bunch of products, and I can see maybe a sleeping bag here. And notice that down at the bottom, instead of over here at the left showing me the filters like we normally would, down at the bottom, the agent is engaging with the consumer in the session and saying, hey, can I help you find the product that you're looking for? Are you looking for sleeping bags? And you can imagine a little window coming up where I say, yes, actually, I am looking for a sleeping bag. Furthermore, what about if on the product details page, as I am looking at otherwise just static content that's sitting here, what if this content comes alive, where I can see something like synthetic insulation is a feature of this sleeping bag, and I can say to the agent, hey agent, synthetic material is important to me because my kid's allergic to goose feathers, for example. And so I can, do you see this little checkbox here? Maybe I click a little checkbox that says, this is something that I'm interested in. And now as I go back to the search results page, I have a set of products that now are including badges that say, hey, this product, this blue sleeping bag, for example, is a perfect match for what you're looking for. And maybe this other one is a partial match. And then again, I can go to, for example, a product details page, and my checklist of product features, which is it's synthetic, it's kids, it's blue, and it's made by this brand, are all sort of represented here. So what I'm arguing for is what I'm calling ubiquitous filtering. So this idea that filters can only be applied on the search results page in this kind of stateless search results to PDP type experience, is that we make the session more stateful, and that we include the agent like we would include a human in the product discovery process if we were at a real store. And so now all of a sudden, instead of search being the search page, search is starting to come, and product discovery is branching out into long description content, into chat interactions, and also in the traditional search results filter modality. So this ubiquitous filtering idea, I don't know anybody, nobody's doing this as far as I know. I think it's interesting. Maybe you think it's dangerous or a bad idea. I'm really interested in what you guys think. We would love to, we work with a partner to experiment with this, and would love to know if you'd like to experiment with it or learn more. All right, next idea in category browse is not quite as radical as what I just showed you, but I think there is a new generation of dynamic categories that you'll start to see in 2022. So this is an example, the Francis bedroom. I'm going back to Costco. I'm a massive Costco person, love Costco. So I'm going back to Costco and I'm looking at this bedroom collection here. And you know, a lot of companies would treat this kind of like a category, right? Because there is a group of different products that are for sale here, just like a normal category. But this is a kind of phony or synthetic category where I wouldn't necessarily want to dynamically add additional products. But I want you to contrast that kind of category with a different one, this one called daybeds, which at the time that I took this screenshot at Costco had only one daybed product in it. What if I could fill that out and show more products in what a feature that we call fill to fold? You know, Costco doesn't do this. I assembled this. And I'm able to show these other products, which are sort of relevant to daybeds. They're not exactly technically daybeds, but they might work for the same purpose that someone who landed on daybeds has in mind. So what I'm arguing for here is a piece of technology that can discriminate between bedroom collection type categories and daybed type categories and fill out thin categories like daybeds with relevant products if I have those maybe stashed in some other kind of category. I think this is a third generation of dynamic categories. The first generation being kind of rule-based, the second being kind of sort of soft understanding of where it's possible to fill out categories and happening mostly at kind of the time when I'm creating the catalog, and this third generation being more dynamic and again coming out of a vector space. So you guys know who this is, right? This is Pharrell Williams, and this is this guy, I think his name is Alexander Arnault, and I believe he's the CEO of Tiffany, new CEO of Tiffany and Company, and somehow part of the LVMH family, I believe. And Pharrell Williams wore just 2 days ago, this was put on Instagram on Sunday, these custom-made 18-karat gold sunglasses with 61 round brilliant diamonds, 25 total carats, and here's the most important part for me to I want you to focus on: 2 emerald cut emeralds. And I don't know how much these things cost, but they're absolutely outrageous and awesome. If you have the means, why not? So look at the language here for a second, though, and think about if you actually had the money to spend and you searched websites, which if you had the money to spend, you probably don't. But how would you go and find these if you wanted to find them? Well, let me give you a simpler example from the Tiffany website. So those are Tiffany glasses. I'm now going to go to the Tiffany site, and I'm searching for rose cut diamond engagement ring. So a rose cut is a traditional diamond, is the way that people always cut diamonds in the, like, I think 18th and 19th century and a lot of the 20th century too, but it's not a modern cut, it's kind of a traditional cut. And you know, there are a lot of people who like that kind of old-fashioned traditional, you know, kind of look for a diamond. And so I've said I want a rose cut diamond engagement ring, and what Tiffany has done here is it's interpreted the word rose to mean the kind of gold that I want, rose gold, right? And so they understand the diamond, all those things have diamonds. I don't think those are really engagement rings. Maybe kind of. They don't really look like engagement rings to me, maybe the third one. But the problem here in their understanding of the query is the word rose cut has thrown the search engine off. I don't care if you sell sneakers or underwear or other kinds of apparel or B2B, you know, hoses and pumps or what, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is that you sell, you have this problem because English is an incredibly ambiguous language where we can move things around in a different order and it means something totally different. Our partner, Grid Dynamics, has written an outstanding blog post on their website called about something called semantic query routing, something that many of our partners are thinking about and that we're thinking and implementing and working on in our platform. And what it does is it takes a complicated multi-token search, and in this case, the search is M olive shirt dress. So M olive shirt dress. M, you might think means men's, but a shirt dress is typically a women, right? Women would wear a shirt dress. So M in this case means medium. So how would I understand M olive shirt dress? Because it would be different. If I said M olive dress shirt, I might assume that that M means men's dress shirt, right? But this is shirt dress. So here's a complicated query. It's as hard as the one that, by the way, no fault of Tiffany, so that's a hard query, right? But here's a way that we can solve that kind of a difficult query by understanding each token and combinations of tokens in the context of the universe of concepts and things that human beings who read queries automatically understand. Machine learning can do this, and the natural language understanding technology that exists today can do this. And so understanding M olive shirt dress through semantic query routing is I think, a really cool capability that we'll see more of in 2022. There's some new capabilities around language, and translating content into multiple languages is a huge expense and pain in the neck for most companies that operate not just e-commerce websites, like especially for content-oriented websites, it's very difficult. And if you operate a website like in B2B, where there's a lot of, I'm thinking of life sciences, where there is a lot of non-product content and a lot of product content, it is a real pain in the butt. Before I do that though, I want to plug a company, publicly traded company that has an app that I absolutely love. I'm hoping to go to Italy this summer with my family, and so I'm learning Italian on Duolingo. And I saw this article came out a week ago, and it says that people who use Duolingo are able to get to the same level of proficiency in a language that they study as a university student who takes that language for 4 consecutive semesters, and the Duolingo learner is able to do it in half the time. And this is not some BS that Duolingo put up on their website. This is a peer-reviewed academic journal where they scrutinized the methodology for coming to this conclusion. So if you haven't tried Duolingo and you want to learn another language, here's your opportunity. I think it's a marvelous technology. But the thing that this relates to is that if you have some content that's not translated on the site into the local language, so there is a heterogeneous mix of one language and another language, then it kind of creates a problem, right? Because users who are using one language are able to find certain content but not other content. Now, what that means is that people in other countries, if the default language is English, they just start searching in English, or if the default language is Chinese, they search in Chinese. But people fall through the gaps, right? Like you might start to realize, like if you're Italian, you might realize that, for example, this Agilent life sciences e-commerce website, that, oh wow, a lot of content on the site is in Italian. So if I'm looking for a GC column, I might use the Italian way of saying that, which is Cologne GC. My pronunciation's probably not very good for that word. And you can see it takes me, I don't know if you can tell, but this is non-product content. These are PDF files. But GC columns are a big category of things that Agilent sells, but they understand the language, in this case, literally. So Cologne GC is literally looked for in these non-product and product content places and only found in the translated content, and then that stuff comes up. So if you look though, and I start to type GC column in the United States site, they have type ahead suggestions for it. And if I actually click through on one of these, they have a whole selector tool for finding GC columns. So not only do they have the product, they have a whole bunch of infrastructure and finders and things to help you find the right GC column, whatever language you speak. So, I'm not trying to argue that this is a big crime or something, but I do think there are companies that, like, for example, do business in Canada where there are 2 languages that are spoken, where they maybe slow their release of products down because they're waiting for translation, and maybe that translation isn't all that good because it's done in an automatic way, or it's expensive because it's done by a human. I would submit to you that being able to search in another language and find products that are described in English, or search in English and find products that are only described in Japanese, is a way that you can go to market faster with content and products in other languages. And vector retrieval allows you to do this. And if you'd like to see it, we have an awesome YouTube video that shows you how this works. Where we search for travel restrictions on certain airline flights in Japanese and are able to find the correct information in English. And we do that with no translation. So this is where it's like magic to me. Wrap your head around, how would we do that? How would I say cologne in Italian, and without having the word cologne anywhere in my index, return the word column, products that have the word column? But it's a thing that we're able to do, and we'd love to show you how we do it. I think it's really, really mind-blowing and cool. So that's number 9. Number 10 is our transition into Q&A, and it's just that my prediction is, and I hope this is true, and if you can touch wood with me everywhere, we'll send good karmic vibes into the universe, that 2022 is the end of this awful plague that we are all living through for the last 2 years.